plan, stressing the need to strengthen human resources in healthcare alongside infrastructure, service delivery, research and funding. The minister pledged continuous engagement with the college while acknowledging its challenges, adding that the government was considering special funding to fast-track specialist training and reduce brain drain.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA Kano State Command, has transferred 450,000 intercepted pills of pregabalin capsules to the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control (NAFDAC). Pregabalin, an anticonvulsant and pain relief medication originally intended for the treatment of epilepsy, neuropathic pain, and anxiety disorders, is now misused for its sedative and euphoric effects. The Public Relations Officer for the command, Mr. Sadiq Maigatari, in a statement today, revealed that the drug was concealed in a van and packed in 60 cartons, was intercepted by an NDLEA patrol team along the Kano-Adija road. Acting on the Memorandum of Understanding between NDLEA and NAFDAC, the Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the NDLEA, retired Brigadier General Mohammed Bubamawa, directed the immediate transfer of the drugs to NAFDAC to enable further testing and determination of regulatory status.
The Rivers State House of Assembly has reconvened for plenary today after the 6-month state of emergency imposed by President Bola Tinubu came to an end. President Tinubu had formally lifted the emergency rule on September 17, directing Governor Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy Ngozi Odu, and members of the State Assembly to resume duties starting from September 18. Today's session was presided over by Speaker Martins Amoyele and held at the conference hall within the legislative quarters in Port Harcourt, the state capital. The lawmakers have been using the conference hall as a temporary chamber since the official chamber at the Assembly complex on Moscow Road was set ablaze and later demolished by the state government.
However, as the Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara is expected to return to office today following the expiration of his 6-month suspension, public affairs analysts have enjoined him to ensure he abide by the peace agreement signed with his predecessor Nyesom Wike in order to ensure a stable administration. Staff reporter Gbemisola Adebayo presents a report on issues bordering his suspension, resumption and political landscape in Rivers State.
Governor Siminalayi Fubara was suspended on March 18, 2025 after a prolonged political standoff with his predecessor, Nyesom Wike. The crisis, which triggered a breakdown of law and order, saw the Rivers State House of Assembly dominated by Wike's loyalists threaten the governor with impeachment. With the suspension now lifted, President Bola Tinubu has officially declared an end to the state of emergency in Rivers State. This decision restores full constitutional governance, enabling Governor Fubara, his deputy Ngozi Odu, and members of the state legislature to resume their duties. With this development, political analysts have cautioned the governor to tread carefully as he returns to office. A former lawmaker, Honorable Kayode Busari, and public affairs analyst Wale Adewumi urged Fubara to prioritize peace, stability, and full compliance with the agreement brokered by President Tinubu. They stressed that strong leadership is vital to unlocking economic growth and ensuring the well-being of residents.
As a young man, the future is still there for him. He's a young man. The sky should be the limit for him. Next time he's speaking his political godfathers, I'm sure he will have a deep look, and he will by now know that there are forces that you have to reckon with when you are in the place of government. Even in a more developed economy, in an advanced economy, you can't rule out the possibility of godfatherism. More so, when you do have strong financial clout to pursue your political ambition. Even when you have a deep pocket, you still have to rely on one or two people here and there that have been there.
Yeah, recently we had an election that put in APC as chairman, so in all the local governments. Then we also have the House, more or less APC. So being the only man standing out, he doesn't have option than to conform. What I thought he should have done earlier was maybe not coming in, just remaining outside the corridor of power, but which also shows the situation in Nigeria that everybody has a price. So based on that, they've named their price, and I believe he's ready to follow, to toe the path. So far, he's just coming there, I think, to mark register and to do as others. He's not coming to give an exceptional leadership impact.
Across River States, citizens are anticipating the revival of stalled projects and a return to normal governance. However, political observers warn that sustaining the fragile compromise reached with Wike will be central to preserving peace and stability in the state. Bimsola Adebayo, BCOS News.
Members of the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, JUSUN, in Enugu State have suspended their 7-day strike. This is contained in a communique issued today by the Chairman and Secretary of the Union, Samson Ifedima and Jonas Onya, respectively, in Enugu. It was gathered that the Union on September 12 announced an indefinite strike over non-payment of the consolidated judiciary salary structure following the autonomy given to the judiciary and other salary arrears. The communique said the suspension was called off as the struggle yielded its greatest reward through the formal establishment of the State Account Allocation Committee by the state government. The communique further said that the outcome had reshaped their perception of the administration and further confirms its genuine commitment to democratic consolidation and the strengthening of the rule of law.
This broadcast of Newscope is coming to you from the Broadcasting Corporation of your state, Ibadan. The Olubadan designates Oba Rashidi Oluyole raised voice against alleged discrimination against Nigerians living in South Africa, especially as it relates to the use of public facilities. Oba Ladoja expressed this displeasure while hosting some South African evangelists who felicitate with him on his ascension to the position of Olubadan of Ibadan land. Staff reporter Adebayo Abdurrafi was at the Bodija Ibadan residence of the monarch to bring the details.
The founder, New Hope Church, South Africa, Apostle Oluyole, and a pastor of the church, Trevor November, were in Ibadan at the instance of Apostle Oluyole Kikiola, and they decided to pay homage on the Olubadan designate Oba Rashidi Ladoja ahead of his coronation ceremony. Addressing the visitors, Oba Ladoja stated that South Africans should not have a reason to be hostile against Nigerians because of the role played by Nigeria in the liberation of the once apartheid nation. Oba Ladoja therefore charged the ministers of God to champion the preaching of other nationals by South Africans, noting that God never loves those who spread hatred.
So I want to please you, and also with Pastor November, and please help South Africa to understand what the world is. I know many of these people have never gone out before. They think that the world is as empty where they are. And the Bible says that they should be lenient to strangers.
The founder, New Hope Church, South Africa, Apostle Oluyole, who later prayed for peace, tranquility and progress under the reign of Oba Ladoja, assured that as a member of the religious parliament in South Africa, he will relay the monarch's message to the South African people.
40 means time of hardship is over. 4 means the partnership makes the number of earth, that means you're going to make a significant difference in all the other kings that have ever ruled. But I'll mention your name in the, we meet with Cyril Ramaphosa on the occasions as the religious parliament.
It will be recalled that just a few days ago, a video went viral wherein some South Africans were discriminating against nationals of other countries from the use of public health facility. Adebayo Abdurafi, BCOS News.
The dynamics of rice cost has raised concerns due to an observed imbalance in managing price fluctuations. It was gathered that when prices wholesale cost decreases, retailers often seem reluctant to pass on the benefits to consumers, rather maintaining the initial higher cost. BCS reporter Francis Aino looks into the recent market trends, the current cost of rice, and the impact on consumers.
As a staple food in Nigeria, the cost of rice significantly impacts household budgets and food security. While the government has implemented policies aimed at reducing costs, the current market trends and global prices have also played a significant role in the recent decrease in the cost of rice in Nigeria. However, some retailers continue to sell rice to uninformed consumers at the previous higher price, failing to pass on the benefits of recent price reductions. Some rice sellers, however, emphasize the importance of collective responsibility in shaping a fairer and more cost-effective market for all.
Like before, it's 85, 80, like 3 or 4 weeks now. Then 85. It's now 65, 63. It depends on the rice. You know, there are different kinds of rice. So there's some rice, it has grade. So some people will say they are selling 60, that is the least grade. But for quality rice, 63, 65.
Bag is 62,000. Amount of Congo ni 22, 23. So it depends on it. Kalukuba sim oja nasi. Rice is Nigeria wa, Kutonu wa. Ama Kutonu la ntawa to in Nigeria ti won ju Kutonu lo. Nila wa keke wa. So nila yen won tie ju àwọn kékeré yẹn lọ. So nila 3,000 ní Congo nila. Bagi tie 80,000 ní bagi olomo nla yẹn.
Members of the public and consumers alike welcomed the recent reduction in the cost of rice, expressing hope that further price adjustments would follow, bringing greater relief to households and contributing to improved food affordability.
Wọn ò jẹ́ kó dínwó ní wípé tó Ọlọ́run ló mọ̀rìn àjò ayé wọn gbogbo ń tẹ́lá bá ṣe ń kọ̀rọ̀ ní ọgbà lẹ́sìn ṣùgbọ́n bó ṣe dínwó yẹn wọ́n jẹ́ àmọ̀ kò dínwó tá bá ti jẹ́ àmọ̀ kò dínwó ọ̀rọ̀ di àwọn náà yóò dọ̀ ọmọ wọn náà tọ́lá àfáà tó ní yóò mú ni ọmọ tiẹ̀ ní òní jẹ tíà mọ tí nǹkan bá dínwó ẹ jẹ́ ká mọ̀ kò ti dínwó àánú ò dínwó rẹ̀ tó bá tún léwó gbé yẹn náà ni ó mọ̀ kò ti léwó torí ọ̀rọ̀ Nàìjíríà yìí lọ wájú lu ẹ̀yìn ni ẹlòmíì ọjà tó wọ́n lè wà ṣọ́ọ̀bù rẹ̀ kí ọjà tó pọ̀ yẹn dé so èyí tó pọ̀ tó bá ra ó yẹ kí wọ́n jẹ́ ọmọ yìí kó ti pọ̀ ní tó bá tún gbówó sókè wọ́n á pé tó bá ń bẹ ní ẹ̀dínwó tó bá fi gbówó sókè wọ́n fowó lé náà ni tó bá sì ti dínwó yẹ kí wọ́n jẹ́ wọ́n mọ̀ kó dínwó kí ọjọ́ iwájú tiwọn náà lè dáa.
It was noted that citizens often make market problems worse by taking advantage of price differences and blaming the government for the issues. To create a fairer market, they called for clearer pricing, so that when prices drop, consumers can see the changes and benefit from them. Francis Aino, BCOS News.
The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has shifted the final assessment date for underage candidates who participated in the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination (UTME). The adjustments, according to the board, became necessary after 23 of the 71 universities chosen by the affected candidates failed to submit their post-UTME screening scores by the initial deadline of September 15, 2025. In a statement signed by its public communication advisor, Dr. Fabian Benjamin, JAMB noted that despite the release of the 2025 Senior School Certificate Examination SSE results by the National Examinations Council NECO on September 17, several institutions had yet to comply. The board also reminded universities of their obligations under the Central Administration Processing System CAPS and mandated public universities to further their recommended candidates on or before September 30, while private universities have until October 31st, 2025. The board emphasized that strict compliance with these timelines was critical to ensuring a smooth, fair and transparent admission process for the 2025-2026 academic session.
Staff working with the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas (NLNG) Train 7 project have embarked on a protest in Boni local government area of Rivers State over alleged irregular tax deductions. The protest, led by workers under the wool contractors, reportedly began with fitters and welders before spreading to include junior staff. It was reported that each worker has been subjected to monthly deductions of about 150,000 naira for tax clearance over the past 2 years. However, the aggrieved staff alleged that despite the deductions made over the past 2 years, NLNG has not issued them their tax identification numbers, TIN. They further alleged that an audit uncovered anomalies showing that despite the monthly deductions, the taxes were never remitted to the federal government. As a result, the workers are demanding the release of their TINs and a refund of the monies deducted over the last 2 years.
The Lagos State government has ordered the immediate suspension of all ongoing and proposed land reclamation projects across the state, citing several environmental and social risks associated with uncontrolled activities. Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab, in a statement, raised alarm over the rapid spread of unauthorized reclamation works on wetlands, floodplains and lagoon fronts in high-risk locations. According to him, many of the projects were being executed without mandatory environmental impact assessment approvals or drainage clearances from the ministry. He said the suspension, which takes immediate effect, requires all approved reclamation projects to be resubmitted to the ministry for documentation and monitoring. The commissioner issued a 7-day compliance deadline, warning that defaulters will face strict sanctions.
On the foreign scene, Ukraine has received 1,000 bodies from Russia that Moscow said were fallen Ukrainian soldiers. Ukraine's coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war, POWs, disclosed this today, noting that repatriation measures took place. However, another government body that provides information on Russian prisoners of war and missing Russian soldiers also disclosed that Ukraine returned the bodies of 24 Russian soldiers in exchange. The repatriation of soldiers' bodies and the exchange of POWs are some of the only areas of cooperation between Ukraine and Russia amidst the war. Tens of thousands of soldiers have been killed on both sides since Russia's invasion in 2022, though neither side regularly publishes data on their own casualties. Despite a US-led push to end the conflict through diplomatic efforts and 3 rounds of direct talks between Kyiv and Moscow, progress towards stopping the fighting appears to have stalled.
To end this edition of Newscope, here again are the main points. President Bola Tinubu has commiserated with the families of those who lost their lives in a fire incident at Afriland Towers in Lagos Highland.
The Rivers State House of Assembly has reconvened from plenary today after the 6-month state of emergency imposed by President Bola Tinubu came to an end.
The Olubadan designate Oba Rashidi Adewolu Ladoja has raised voice against alleged discrimination against Nigerians living in South Africa, especially as it relates to the use of public facilities.
And on the foreign scene, Ukraine has received 1,000 bodies from Russia that Moscow said were of fallen Ukrainian soldiers.
And that's all from Newscope desk for now. It was edited by Ajedoni Olojede and delivered by
Josephine Oluwabumi. Good evening.
Afolakemi Akombi. Don't forget to tune in for the Yoruba edition at 8 o'clock tonight. Good evening.
The city of Ibadan, the home of ancient warlords, in the Pacesetter state, this is Oluyole FM 98.5 Ibadan.
ètò ìlera nípìnlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ló ń gbèrú sí i pẹ̀lú akitiyan ètò ìjọba ọlọ́lá jùlọ gómìnà Olúṣèyí Abíọ́dún Mákindé láti pàṣẹ iléeṣẹ́ elétò ìlera ìpínlẹ̀ yìí ní kó àwọn èwe tí ń dọ̀rọ̀ tàn síbẹ̀ ìgbìyànjú iléeṣẹ́ elétò ìlera ń tẹ̀síwájú láfi rán àwọn ìyálọ́mọ létí wípé bọ́mọ bá ti pé oṣù mẹ́fà lẹ́yìn oúnjẹ omi ọyàn pọ̀nbélé àwọn oúnjẹ aṣaralóore alákòpọ̀ mashed foods la máa fún wọn jẹ pẹ̀lú àfikún omi ọyàn àwọn oúnjẹ bíi ẹyin ẹja èso ewébẹ̀ ẹ̀wà ẹ̀pà sóyà ìrẹsì àgbàdo iṣu àtàwọn míì àwọn oúnjẹ wọ̀nyí ló kún fún okun agbára ìjípépé ìdàgbàsókè àlàáfíà àti ìlera tó péye bákan náà ní ká gbájúmọ́ ìmọ́tótó ara àti àyíká bá a ṣe ń fọmọ oṣù mẹ́fà láwọn oúnjẹ yìí láti máa fún mi ọyàn lá kí wọ́n lè jẹ́ àgbéyè àti àwòyè bó tilẹ̀ jẹ́ wípé ètò ọrọ̀ ajé lágbára lásìkò yìí ẹ jẹ́ ká pèsè ọjọ́ iwájú rere fáwọn ọjọ́ ọ̀la wa ìṣòmó jìnnà fún àjẹun ìkéde ló wá látọ̀dọ̀ ikọ̀ àárín àti iléeṣẹ́ elétò ìlera ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́.
Gbàgede òṣèlú dé. Gbàgede òṣèlú tún ti dé gẹ́gẹ́ bí ìṣe rẹ̀ o níbi tá a gbé máa ń gbàlejò àwọn lókọ̀lókì láàrin ìlú akọni níwájú adájọ́ àgbà ọ̀já amòfin lórílẹ̀‐èdè Nàìjíríà ògbóǹtarìgì olóṣèlú ajàfẹ́tọ̀ọ́ ọmọnìyàn akẹ́kàkà lójú ọlọ́rọ̀ olóyè Adéníyì Akíntọ́lá SAN lálejò gbàgede òṣèlú lọ́jọ́ sátidé ọ̀sẹ̀ yìí o gbogbo ohun tẹ́ ẹ bá fẹ́ mọ̀ nípa ètò òṣèlú wa lórílẹ̀‐èdè yìí ohun tó ń rú yín lójú nípa ọ̀rọ̀ ìwé òfin ilẹ̀ wa àti àwọn ohun tó jọmọ́ àtúnṣe rẹ̀ látìgbà yìí wá tó fi mọ́ ìlàkàkà pérò ọ̀rọ̀ òṣèlú lóníranran àtàwọn ibi tá a gbé tẹ èpo ọ̀gẹ̀dẹ̀ mọ́lẹ̀ tó fi di kọ̀ bí ìgbè ìbò fẹnu ọkọ̀ sọlẹ̀ lálejò wa yóò fi ìdáhùn sí tó bá dọjọ́ sátidé ọ̀sẹ̀ yìí ẹ̀yẹn ṣáà ti pàdé olóyè Adéníyì Akíntọ́lá SAN tó bá da aago 10 àárọ̀ ọjọ́ sátidé sáago 12 ọ̀sán lórí ètò gbàgede